All right, let's talk about school lunch. We all have memories of it, right? But behind those plastic trays and milk cartons, there's this massive, really complex system. And honestly, right now, that system is facing a kind of hidden crisis. But here's the exciting part. It's also on the brink of a huge transformation, all thanks to some really brilliant new ideas. So, you might think you know school lunch. It seems pretty straightforward. But what's actually happening behind that cafeteria line is so much more complicated and frankly, way more important than most of us ever realize. Just to give you a sense of the scale here, look at this number, 30 million. The National School Lunch Program serves over 30 million students. And get this, that's every single school day. This isn't some small operation, it's a nationwide logistical feat, and it's absolutely critical to the health of millions of our kids. But like I said, behind this massive operation, there's a system that's really struggling under its own weight. So to understand the solution that's emerging, we first have to get a handle on the real problem that's lurking behind the scenes. What's so wild is that these school nutrition programs are basically huge businesses. A nutrition director is juggling all of this stuff you see here, supply chains, federal compliance, huge budgets, the whole shebang. But here's the catch. They're often trying to manage a multi-million-dollar operation without any of the modern tools or systems you'd find in literally any other business of that size. And that lack of systems? Well, it leads to this huge problem, one that actually has a name, the compliance trap. And to really, truly get it, you've got to hear the story of someone who lived through it. This is Alana Jones. Now, imagine this. After working her way up for years, she finally lands her absolute dream job as a school nutrition director. She was passionate, she was ready to make a difference, and then, just 3 months in, she fails her very first audit. As she said, she was just devastated. This wasn't someone who didn't care. This was a dedicated professional who cared more than anyone. So, what on earth went wrong? This was her huge light bulb moment. The issue wasn't that she didn't know the rules. She didn't have an information problem. She had a systems problem. She was just living in this constant state of putting out fires, rushing from one crisis to the next, totally buried in paperwork. The real enemy wasn't the auditor, it was the broken system she was trying to work inside of. So here's the crucial point. The compliance trap is this hidden cycle of just overwhelm. The sheer weight of all the administrative work, all the reporting, all the documentation, it just crushes even the best-run programs. It completely stifles any creativity and pulls these amazing professionals away from what they're supposed to be doing, feeding kids great food. And the consequences? Oh, they are very, very real. One small childcare program Alana worked with lost over $100,000. $100,000. Why? Simple paperwork errors led to their claims being disallowed. For a small program, a loss that big is catastrophic. It just goes to show you how dangerous it is to operate inside a broken system. Okay, so that's the problem. And it sounds pretty bleak, right? But out of this crisis, a really powerful two-part solution started to emerge. One part is all about the people, the leaders, and the other part is about technology, the logic. Let's break down exactly how this works. So the first piece of this puzzle is a complete mindset shift. This is the whole idea behind something called the CNP CEO Leadership Academy. It basically trains nutrition directors to stop thinking like clerks, just reacting to problems and checking boxes, and start acting like CEOs. They learn to strategically build systems, delegate wisely, and actually drive the mission forward. Because real leaders don't do it all themselves, they build the systems that do. The second piece is the technology. But we're not talking about just any tech. It's something called guardrailed AI. The best way to think of it is like a super-powered administrative assistant, not a replacement for a person. Its job is to draft things, organize information, and cut down on all that repetitive work. But here's the crucial part. It is intentionally built not to make the final call. It operates within these really strict boundaries, so a skilled human professional always has the final compliant say. So how do you actually use AI safely in a field that's this regulated? Well, you use a framework. This is the plate method. First, you prepare by telling the AI its specific expert role. Then you lock in the exact USDA regulations. You ask it to do a task like, say, draft a menu. Then, and this is key, you test the output to make sure it's compliant before you finally execute. It's a brilliant way to move from just guessing to having real regulatory precision. So what happens when you combine this new leadership mindset with these really powerful new tools? Well, you get a pretty dramatic transformation. You literally move from a state of chaos to a state of calm, collected confidence. I mean, just look at this. This is the old way. It was a slow, soul-crushing grind, planning a menu on paper, then manually building reports, literally digging through mountains of binders for an audit. This whole process could take weeks, sometimes even months. It is the absolute definition of the compliance trap. And now, this is the new way. That entire paper chase is transformed into this sleek, automated process. Planning and reporting that took weeks can now literally be done in seconds. And what that does is it frees up these incredibly skilled professionals to focus on what they're actually passionate about: nutrition, creativity, and connecting with the kids they serve. The efficiency gains here are just staggering. We are talking about an up to 80% reduction in the time spent just on processing nutritional data and verifying compliance. Just think about that for a second. That is a game-changing shift in how a nutrition department can spend its time and energy. So when you bring these two powerful solutions together, these empowered leaders and these intelligent tools, what does that actually mean for the future of school lunch? This right here is the main takeaway. It is not a people versus technology situation, not at all. A well-trained, empowered leader, someone who thinks like a CEO, becomes infinitely more effective when they have powerful, data-driven tools to help them. The two just amplify each other. And that leaves us with this final, really exciting thought. When these directors are no longer drowning in paperwork, when compliance is calm and completely under control, what can they focus on? Imagine them having the time to try out new menus, to source fresh, local foods, to truly focus on creating meals that kids are actually excited to eat. That's the future that's starting to happen right now.